whoa, Grandpa, tell me about the good old days.
And I am not as familiar with this series as maybe another person who's in tune with me might be, and it's a show called Quantum Leap.
Yeah. So the basic premise now that I think about it, I realize that this show is probably a little bit before a lot of people's time. You know, some of the younger people in the audience might not know this show. This was, late 80s, early 90s maybe? It was, I really enjoyed the show. So the idea was, it was an episodic sci-fi series, sci-fi dramedy type of thing. And it was in the same vein as, I don't know, like you've heard me talk about the Voyagers before and stuff like that. Time traveler that doesn't have control of where and when he's going. And he has to, find out what's going on, try to correct history. Once he corrects history, he can go on to the next place. And in some ways, it also kind of was like at the same time that this show was on, there were other shows like Michael Landon had Highway to Heaven. Roma Downey was doing Touched by an Angel. This idea of heavenly forces, trying to help people, fix their lives. Kind of It's a Wonderful Life on a, weekly basis type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what this was, but, kind of with a sci-fi bent. And it was later on in the series where it was implied that even though he was a scientist caught up in something, why would the universe be wanting him to, correct things for the better? Well, maybe the universe, when we say the universe, maybe we mean God,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the idea is the main character, this scientist, Sam Beckett, some kind of a crazy genius, a la, Buckaroo Banzai. He's good at everything, but the problem is the time traveling Swiss cheesed his brain, so he doesn't remember a lot of things. And the only way he can stay tethered is there is a tachyon hologram of a government oversight individual played by Dean Stockwell in his time, who enters a holographic chamber and projects an image of himself to communicate with him. And he's talking to the guys in the lab, and, that's how he gets support from the future. And, he fills in the gaps for him. This is why you don't remember things. Let me help you out, And in so doing, it also fills in the audience, so that you can jump in at any episode. You're as lost as he is, and that's okay, because you've got Al to be the what do they call it? The exposition dump, so to speak. And it's sometimes very funny because he's got this little PDA that he's reading off of. He says, well, Gushy says that you are lost in a time travel situation, and he hits it and it, glitches, and it's kind of funny. And, he's got these, anyway. So
Okay.
The first season was very of its time. It was very much, like I said, these you could even think of it as, if you don't even know Highway to Heaven, think more of the Incredible Hulk. Okay. He goes town to town, meets some nobody who's having problems. He helps them out. He moves on to the next person, right? And he's, every time he's hoping that if he helps enough people, he'll be one day able to make it home. Well, throughout the first season, he's helping random fictional people, just average people. And some of
time periods, right?
in different time periods, which is great because it ends up putting him in these different, what do you call it? These different periods, it's a period piece each time. So like one time he ends up in the body of a black man during, segregation,
Right.
which is, an incredibly poignant story, right?
Mm-hmm.
These days you'd be tempted to say woke, but this was back when poignant stories weren't woke. They were thought provoking. They
Right.
were actually good,
They got you to think.
and every single one of them had a great deal of heart. There was one where he ends up, that's what I'm missing. When he travels around, it's like his brain is being dumped into the body of somebody else. So he inhabits the body of that black man, or he embodies, or his mind goes into the body of, in one case, a pregnant woman. I mean, it's crazy. So you've got Scott Bakula, walking around just as Scott Bakula, sometimes wearing a dress or whatever, but he's just Scott Bakula. And then he'll be walking like with his hands on his back because he's supposed to be pregnant, but he doesn't have a stomach, right? Because he's, that's how you see him. But when he looks in a mirror, you see the woman. He sees the woman or the black man or the whatever he is, right? In one that was really, really challenging for me, he ends up in the body of a boy with Down syndrome.
Oh, wow.
And and he's seeing things from his point of view. Every time he tries to say something, he gets, because of the way people treat him, even though his mind isn't, inhibited, he is himself, he's a genius, but because of the way people are treating him, he gets tongue-tied, and he's always second-guessing himself, and he ends up sounding foolish,
right?
And it's, and then he'll of course, this was a common trope. He would slip up and say something like somebody from the future, and people would look at him and go, "Well, that's crazy," He's like, he sits down to breakfast, and your eggs are getting cold. That's okay, Mom. You could just microwave them. What's microwave? And his sister says, "Oh, he's talking like in his comic books, Yeah, that's what I meant, Mom.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing." So that was the first season. Second season, they continued that formula, but every now and again he would jump into a famous person. There was one episode where he was Elvis Presley, and his whole thing was to help Elvis, get his first record cut. And they draw from real history. They fictionalize it a bit. It was really good. Scott Bakula is also a great, great singer. So he did all of his own singing, and he did a phenomenal job.
Cool.
But probably the best ones, which I'm hoping is what they're going to draw on with this upcoming reboot, is there was one episode called The Leap Home, and he literally leaps into himself as a younger man, and he is trying desperately to get his father to stop overeating and stop smoking so he doesn't die of a heart attack. He's trying to get his sister to not go with the guy she's going with because he's going to be abusive to her, and it's not working. And Al tells him, "This isn't why you're here. You're here because of something that's going on in Vietnam." And there's a twist because Al actually is trying to get him to help his older self in Vietnam. Al was a prisoner of war in Vietnam and was presumed dead. His fiance married someone else. So when he comes home, she's moved on. And he never got over that. So he was trying to get him to get a message out to help him. Well, in doing that, he fails to help Al, but it turns out ends up saving a buddy of Al's. That was what he was really there for.
Huh.
And, well, actually, it was a two-parter, because when he leaps into the body of his buddy and ends up saving the buddy. And, he tells Al, hold on, I'll do what I can for you, whatever. And when he doesn't leap out at the end. He's like, "What's going on? I don't understand." And Al's like, "We're running the numbers. We're trying to figure it out, Sam. We're sorry. We don't know why you haven't leapt yet." And Sam goes, "I think I know why." And then he goes to where Al's fiance is. She's having a rough night. She's crying. She's looking at a picture of him, knowing he's missing. And he says, "We're not here for me to do anything. We're here for you." And it gives him the opportunity to go and see her. Like, he's a holographic projection. She can't see him, but he's able to see her. and she gets up and dances to Georgia on My Mind. That was their song. And
Right.
she's dancing by herself, but he kind of leans in like he's dancing with her. And that's when Sam leaps. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so in the very last episode, the way it's left open-ended is, I won't go into all the details of how they ended the show, but his last leap, he physically, as himself, as Sam Beckett, materializes in that house on that night. And Al's fiance sees her and he jumps and he goes, Beth, don't get scared. I'm a friend of Al's and I'm here to help you. She says, Al, he says, yes. He goes, you need to hear this. Al's alive and he's being held prisoner, but he's going to get out. I promise you, just wait for him. And she starts to cry and he leaps out. And fade to black, end card says, she waited, she never married. She and Al got married when he got back. They had 4 daughters. Sam Beckett never made it home. And that's where the series ended. And we've been waiting for 30 years to find out what happened to Sam. Now, we know that last year Dean Stockwell passed away, so he's not coming back, which is fine because his story is basically ended. We want to know what happens to Sam.
The Scott Bakula character.
Yeah.
They
A lot of
have him
people
back on, right?
A lot of people are saying, oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, he said he'd be open to it. A lot of people have suggested that they cast some girl to play one of Al's daughters. Mm-hmm. You know, she knows the story. She's still trying to help this friend of her father's who was responsible for her existing, you know?
Huh. Yeah.
We'll see. But I'll be the first one championing if that's the route they go and someone says, oh, okay, they're bringing in the women, they're going woke. No, that's not what it is. This was established 30 years ago that Al had 4 daughters. If any one of them, if they don't have a role in it, that would be an affront to the fans. Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Man, I'm sorry. I took up way too much time on this, but this was a real good old days for me. I love that show.
No, I mean, the Quantum Leap. I mean, it was a huge deal. It's a show I need to get around to watching one of these days.
It's actually there have been a lot of series like that. You know, another one was Sliders. You can get the whole series in one, collection for really cheap. I mean, they're like terrible quality, but for real cheap you can get the whole series on a spindle and play it through. It's kind of like the quality of a VHS, but
Gotcha.
Who cares? And no extras, no behind the scenes, none of that kind of stuff. You just watch it. It's fine. Do it.